Where do we go from here? George Magnus is senior advisor at UBS, joining us now with his outlook for next year. It's a tough one, this. I mean, you know, when are we going to be out of the woods?
This is going to take years to get out of. I don't think there's any question that we can imagine a year after the the Lehman's collapse that that it's over. So clearly we're still going through the period where defaults in the corporate sector are pretty much at the highs so far in the cycle. So this will roll on into the first half of next year. Sovereign default obviously is now everybody on everybody's lips.
That's the next thing. But also we're looking at contagion coming from which areas as well?
Well, I think the banking crisis as such, I think we've kind of put behind us in the sense that, the systemic angle has been...
Well, I mean, look, we haven't really... I mean, we had an Austrian bank yesterday which was forced to be nationalised. Yeah. We're not out of the woods. That was down to Eastern Europe.
Absolutely. So, I mean, so this is not to say that banks aren't going to go bust, but I just think the systemic problem where the whole system may be in danger. I think we've basically put into place a system which actually would mitigate against that happening. However, there are still banks going bust all the time. Normally they are smaller, less significant banks. But the, part of the way that we've dealt with this problem actually is to transfer huge volumes of private sector debt into the public sector. And that's really now where the big issue lies, I think, for 2010. Obviously, Greece and Spain and Ireland and who's next?
Well, this is it, isn't it? I mean, this is just picking up on that, this sovereign debt crisis. I mean, Dubai is not necessarily a sovereign debt, but in effect it is because it was owned by the state. But is this the next crisis? Is this what is brewing and perhaps could come and hit us very hard in 2010?
Well, it's definitely bubbling away. And for the moment, obviously, we've had, programs in Ireland and Spain and just, yesterday or today in Greece. And so, it's very important that, the governments actually strike a balance between not, choking the economy completely and basically convincing investors, because this is a world of, highly mobile capital. It's an unprecedented expansion of peacetime public debt. It's never happened before, except in war. So, we don't know whether the social consensus will wear the idea of protracted period of fiscal restraint. So, very, very big issues for governments to
And then we look at the global economy, and of course, there's the Chinese, and that's the big player. And many people who are thinking that China might be able to left the rest of the world out. Are they said to be disappointed?
Well, I think, in the short term, which is to say, between now and, let's say, the first half of next year, I don't think so. I mean, there's a huge momentum in China's economy through, the enormous pumping in of bank loans into the economy and the fiscal stimulus and so on. But whilst we're dealing with the consequences of a debt crisis that's already happened, China is basically kind of stirring, the ingredients of its own debt crisis through the creation of just unprecedented amounts of credit. So we should know now that actually these credit booms eventually do end in tears unless they're adequately contained in the process. So the big issue for China...
Yeah, that's the point. I mean, are we seeing new asset bubbles? Is that the thing here?
It's unquestionably happening in China, and the issue is whether they let it run or whether they try and put the brakes on in the first half of next year. My suspicion is that they're going to let it run, and in that case the brakes will come on harder, but maybe not until late 2010 or even 2011.
Will it all end in tears, and will it end in tears for us in this part of the world?
Well, it would be really unfortunate if the Chinese were to start, clamping down on their economy at a time when ours is running out of steam after the initial burst that we've had, late this year and early next year. So, I do think in the Western economies that this recovery is like a bungee jump. We went down to the riverbed, we're bouncing, and I don't think this bounce has got much momentum later in 2010.
God, it sounds like it's neck-wrenching anyway. Thanks a lot for that. George Magnus from UBS now.